Thanks all for making the time. What I'm going to discuss now for the next 15 minutes briefly, so that's always a challenge, is what we're doing currently in the flood warning and information service. So I'm a senior user researcher on the next warning system, which is part of the broader flood digital service, which falls under the Environment Agency, which falls under DEFRA, those of you not familiar with DEA. Okay, so I'll go a bit fast, but feel free to stop me if, or actually just ask questions at the end as it comes. So you'll see from the title that it's actually the flood warning and information service. So that is actually two components. It's the warning system that sends out the messages. It's the information service, which is what you will see on Gov UK. So that means that it's a hybrid service. As you'll know, it's also multi-channel and multi-platform. It's informational, transactional. So there's just lots of different elements that come to it. It's not one of your more usual transactional services that you'll find more commonly on Gov UK. It's designed specifically for users in high stress scenarios, so people who are in a flood situation or who have or who will be imminently, or who just want to prepare for it. It's one of the few, if not only, government services which provides direct warnings, targeted warnings to the general public. And it's governed by the Civil Contingencies Act. So that means that the Environment Agency is actually an emergency responder, just like the police or the fire and rescue service or the ambulances. Okay, so this is very broadly how the service looks like, how you will find us. It's got maps, graphs, traditional content. It's got tailored emergency response content that's written by officers on the spot, like these little blurbs right here. We send these warnings out via text messages, automated calls, emails, interactive voice response, and soon to include personal alerting and emergency. Okay, so obviously with the, we're seeing some new unprecedented levels of interest in the service. Just in 2019, we've seen a fourfold increase in the use since compared to 2016, with viewing up to 50 million pages of content. So I'm not going to go in these figures in too much detail. This is just an overview of the November flooding. I didn't quite have time to do the February ones yet, but you'll see that those peaks and troughs are governed by weather elements basically. So you'll see that those are different storms that will have hit. Just to give you a very rough idea of the amount of messages that are being sent out, just for that 1 month, the system sent out over 600,000 telephone calls, over 260,000 emails, and actually in November, so in February, we had 3 storms in a row, and we sent over 2 million text messages as well. So those can scale up quite quickly. We've had over 6,000 homes registered to the service, so quite big numbers, well, for us anyway. And you'll see at the bottom right, that's also the calls to the flood line, and the flood line is the main contact center that we have for anything flood. And in that month, they had over 9,000 calls. So what are the main components of our system? I'm just going to very briefly walk you through what are the main building blocks of it. So the biggest one that we have is guidance and content. So this will be what to do during the flood cycle. Okay. Then we have what we call a 5-day forecast that will give you an idea of what the flood risk is over the next 5 days, and it's quite a bird's eye view. This is a picture taken from one of the national briefings. So this service will feature during bad weather, just up there with the weather service. Another big component that we have are the river levels. Now, these are graphs that show you where the rivers are, because most of our flooding that we look after is actually from river flooding. And this is used particularly by the super users of our communities, such as flood wardens. And you'll see that there's a dashed line well there over there, and that's the forecast. That's a recent addition actually to the service, and it's something that keen users have used a lot more. Just to give you a bit of context, before adding the forecast, average duration of the service overall for a user was about 40 minutes. When we switched on the forecast, it was 72 minutes. So it's clear that the people who did like the information were really keen to consume it. Okay, then we've got localized impact information. So you'll have the graph of the rivers and what they're doing, but we also are now including specific impacts to, in this case, roads. So this adds a very localized personal elements to the service. So it's not just in relation to the river, it's now in relation to roads and personal landmarks. As I mentioned, this is the 5-day forecast, just to give an idea of the overview. Well, and then this is the gateway to our warning system, which is almost an entire animal all on its own. It's sign up for flood warnings. It's currently being reprototyped into get flood warnings. At the moment, you have to enter your telephone number, email address, and location to sign up, but we're trying to turn this concept on its head with what we call contact first. And that will enable us to register the user just having the telephone number and then send them a code to log in. It's something quite new. I think we've blogged about it recently, and I'm very happy to answer any questions on that new model that we're experimenting. And then we've got a smaller sub-service to it, which is the targeted flood warning service. And this is really aimed at organizations who have a large operational boundary. So that'll be local authorities, that'll be schools, councils, landlords, business people with lots of different properties to keep an eye on. So they have a separate sub-service. And then we've got the multi-agency guidance pages and resources, and that will mostly be what to do in effect and how we can get the service to work in the real world in effect. So not just working in a digital sphere, but actually connecting the user with different institutions like or charities or relief authorities. Okay, then we've got the long-term flood risk information. So this is all part of the flood information service umbrella, and this is basically used by property buyers, people who want to renew their insurance, at points of conveyances or people doing searches. It's got about 1 million transactions per year. It uses static information, and it will tell you if a specific property is in a flood zone. So it uses a slightly different data set. Okay. And then we've got the floodline. I mentioned it briefly, and that is the main contact center that we have during flood. It's got very it's got well-trained call handlers, and it's very well regarded as a contact center nationally. And it's also our main assisted digital channel. So it's assisted digital and accessible actually. So it will both help the users sign up on their own if they so want to, or can sign up the users on their own, and also redirect them to any authority or help they might need. Okay. Then it's probably worth mentioning also we've got data services. All of our data is open. This is by third parties. One example of a powerful collaboration that the team has had recently was with Google, and that brings me to the Google Public Alert. Some of you might already have this or have used it in the past. Also happy to answer questions on this. We've helped other team cross governments to get connected with Google Public Alerts already. The Environment Agency was the first UK authority to do that. Okay, a very brief note on user research, which would be my favorite section, being a user researcher. Okay, so what user research does floods engage with? So I would probably say that the team is quite privileged in the sense that floods being quite a recurrent emergency, unlike other emergency, it can build relationships with communities who do suffer from floods currently and broker those partnerships, which means that we can get invited into local community events that present opportunities such as pop-up testing, formal and informal community workshops, again with communities who have that sort of relief network for flooding. There will also be lab testing for more sophisticated asks from the user, or when we want to have stakeholders in the room from our policy spheres, just to observe how we are impacting the service. Local engagement event. So again, quite fortunate in the sense that the Environment Agency has a very, very prominent role on the ground with events. They will have pop-in sessions, they will have clinics, they will have places where people go and sign up either for the warnings or go and share their stories, or there's a very local footprint to this, and we can sometimes piggyback on them, which is a great opportunity for the team. And then we've also got, most recently, technology simulation. So this is an example of the Environment Agency looking to support some Cabinet Office work around sub-broadcast technology. I'll go into this a bit more later. And there's also conferences where we present prototypes and try and talk to specialist users there. And all this information is then supported and fed back through dashboards. This is one of our dashboards, and during incidents is particularly helpful because we can keep an eye on all the metrics, and also gives us the live feedback from the users, which we check as it comes. Okay, and then we've got surveys out. We've got a number of surveys out actually, and again, because of the relationships through the agency itself, we tend to get pretty good turnouts from surveys. Feedback I've already mentioned. Try and get a little bit more coverage on social media as well, especially during incidents. The team is quite active on there because some of the feedback that is shared on social media is unique, and we try and capture where we can, where it's safe to do so. So again, a very quick note on who the users are. A very, very broad generalization. There'll be two types of users. One who have a very short user journey, so just wants that immediate reassurance of you're safe, you're not safe, you should do something. And then another type of user who will want to have a lot of information, they'll want to consume a lot of data in a lot of detail. So the more engaged users and the less engaged users. In fact, obviously it's a continuum, so you'll have some people giving a bit, wanting to have a little bit more information than others, but generally speaking, it falls into two camps. We've refined it in, generally speaking, 10 personas. These are an example of 4 of them. Now, where these have helped us refining these personas is because the team has expanded and we now have several multi-projects spinning up, we make sure that each researcher or each project doesn't look at their own silo, doesn't look at its own users, even though they might be working in different parts of the service. We are all serving the same customer, all the same users. So these are the people we serve basically, and it helps us keep an eye on that. Okay, so the next section, very briefly again, is based on GDS's view that service design of good services is end-to-end, front to back, and in every channel. So how is the flood warning service end-to-end? Well, it starts with this basically. It answers the initial question, am I going to get wet? And then works its way back to that. So it's basically in the prepare part of the life cycle, we make sure that users can find us very quickly. So we've really abridged that search, organic search, into really one click. And that is something that is looked at currently in the beta service. So this live service is actually in a refresh. Okay. Then in the response section, the prepare, respond, recover, in the response section, users are actually able to have real-time information from the Environment Agency officers, giving them that information. They can also enter the graphs and the telemetry as it comes. And in the response section, there's Environment Agency response during the flood events. So on the ground, boots on the ground. Then we've got reassurance as well and support post-event. So this is in the recover stage, and it treats users and communities as an integral part of the emergency response. Okay, just skip through this. We've talked through most of this. So how is it front to back? Well, it all starts with, it's a fairly complex digital estate, but we try and hide that complexity from the user. So it only really starts with the text. The user receives a simple text. This text is generated by the Environment Agency officers from the incident room via a complex bespoke system that we are actually redesigning. So through the system, and duty officers monitor levels and alarms from the hydrometry, telemetry, and the forecast system. So the officers in the incident room will be receiving all this data from these systems, which we have across the country, and we use this information to trigger our operational response, like closing floodgates. So it's a very, very physical action, the content of which is often cross-verified with Environment Agency officers. So again, so in effect, you have the text coming from a relatively sophisticated system. So we try and again have that front to back approach, trying to work away backwards like that, rather than trying to say we have this system, how do we make it work for the user? Okay, and in every channel, very briefly, so we've mentioned that people can receive it through text, they can receive it by email, they can receive flood warnings through automated calls and interactive voice response. We're also considering looking at the use of Alexa and smart speakers and use in GPS systems, so sat-navs. Try and push that through social media. Currently, DEFRA is getting a lot better using social media, so we are benefiting from that. I've mentioned Google Public Alerts. That's a very big sort of new domain for us as well. On the ground, obviously, there'll be in very serious incidents, there will be sirens, there'll be door knocking, there will be police helping. And then coming soon, we've got a broadcast. Some of you might have heard of this. It's new to the United Kingdom. It's a technology that we are looking to test, especially with regards to the current ongoing coronavirus situation. So it's something that the Environment Agency is assisting Whitehall with. Coming soon, also, we've got people who will be able to communicate back to us, so closing the loop. So if they have any localized impacts that they want to communicate with the EA, they'll be able to do so soon. And so that's it. Thank you so much. We do have a survey out. I always try and push surveys when I can. It's just about interpreting risk generally. Help us with it. If you want, I can send you to it. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, looking forward to your questions.